Hello everybody and welcome back! I am the Pompkin King, and in today's episode we're going to be continuing our build of pure imagination, pure horror. In the previous episode we went ahead and built ourselves a couple of useful items, including the Miskatonic University of Medical Maladies and Mistakes, Mutants and Weirdness. We also built a wolf enclosure. We basically just went around the park adding in little bits and bobs that were needed. And beginning off today, we are jumping into a new attraction that is going to be a combination of Planet Coaster and Planet Zoo. So here I'm going ahead and building the entranceway, this is featured in Planet Coaster, to our Roman Catacombs. For those of you who have never been to Rome, there are extensive network of tunnels underneath the city that are filled with skeletons and bodies from the ancient days and early Christian times. So I'm going around and adding in various skeletons and skulls and bits and bobs to try and make this creepy place come alive. Or, well, come alive in a metaphorical sense, shall we say. The part that took the longest here was definitely getting all of the bones for the ossuary correct. Ossuaries are repositories of bones. It is not uncommon in these catacombs to have whole walls built out of skulls and bones. They used a lot of the building materials that they had to hand, and if you have a lot of dead bodies, you might as well use the dead bodies. I had to build this in several parts, and I wanted to experiment with sinking it below the ground in order to make it properly dark. But I found out right here that I would have to dig a pit and then put the catacombs in it in order to be able to get them underground. So unfortunately, I didn't really plan that out, and I have egg on my face as a result of it. The good news, though, is that I now know that anything that needs to go underground needs to be put there before I start on any of the surface stuff, because otherwise there's a good chance that they're going to impact one another, and we'll see that later on. Here I'm just going through and I'm building the exterior for the entrance to the Roman catacombs. In Rome, there are actually several entrances to the catacombs. This one is actually based on a Roman villa-style home, and it's going to serve multiple purposes, because not only will this be the entrance point to the catacombs exhibit, but it also will be able to feature some mechanical things that we'll need for the park. I've been getting complaints from guests that they're hungry/thirsty, so I went ahead and decided to build some more food stands, and I figured, why not? We'll put them inside the catacombs entrance to kind of entice people in a little bit. I'm going through now and just building up the pediment for the Roman building here, using some of these decorative pieces. Basically, I just want to try and get this as photorealistic as possible to the catacombs entrance in Rome. I did have some trouble with the roof peak. For whatever reason, they only have roof caps that are slightly sagged, like an Asian style version. I have no idea why that should be, but that's what they have. And I went ahead and saved it as a blueprint so I can move the whole thing around all at once. Jumping into the actual pure imagination world, I laid out the space that I was going to need for the catacombs and then proceeded to hollow it out using the terrain tools. Now, as I say, in future I will do all underground stuff first, because as you can see I accidentally broke into the Phantom of the Opera dark ride, but I'm able to kind of cap it off and build the building into place. Filling in the details around the build, I found that it's just a teensy bit too high up, so I have to raise the ground a little bit, which is fine, because if you look at the actual building that this is based on, it is actually built into the side of a hill, and there would be a tunnel leading down into the catacombs itself. Here I am, in fact, working on that tunnel to go down into the catacombs, and I'm just getting rid of the rocks and passages down here. And this is where it'll be connecting over to Planet Zoo for the crypt exhibit, where I'll be featuring bugs and spiders and snakes and all kinds of creepy crawlies. And we'll get there in just a moment. Going through, I'm getting rid of as many of the skulls as I can afford to, just to cut down on the piece count. And I'm just adding in some ambience to the tunnel and making sure that the lighting is properly working, placed, and all that stuff. It is a little anachronistic, of course, to have metal posts like that to hold up candles in an ancient Roman build, but I figure that it works for the lighting, if nothing else. Then you're seeing me struggle with the paths for the better part of 40 minutes. The pathing system is not getting any easier for me, but I do manage to get the food and beverage stands set up eventually and have the entrance down to the catacombs ready to go. Finishing off some of the terrain, I got ready to put the whole thing together, and we're just adding in some trees and decoration to the background. And this is the entire Roman catacombs build once I have integrated it with Planet Zoo. Come in, you have your food and beverage service up at the top here, and then you go down the tunnel into the ossuary, and then you can enter into the crypt, which is where we have all of these little exhibits featuring every spider and also a lot of frogs, lizards, snakes, and other creepy crawly insects and arachnids that we have here in Planet Zoo. I have each of these individual exhibits laid out so that they have the stone walls backing them and separating them. We're trying to keep that kind of crypt feeling. And I really had to work with playing around with submerged lights and everything in order to be able to give it this proper feel, but I'm very happy with how it turned out overall. Over on this side, you can see I've got an iguana, a green iguana. This is actually a double iguana exhibit. There's another iguana in the one next to it. Across the way are the puff adder and the death adder. Here's the Antiguan iguana. Down in here I have the Goliath frog, and this shares an exhibit with the American bullfrog. And across the way there's the boa constrictor and the yellow anaconda. As you can see, this is a very popular exhibit. A lot of people like to come down here to see the creepy crawly bugs and so on. And it was in fact drawing so many people to the park that even with the Roman catacombs food and beverage service, we were still having people that were complaining about being hungry. So I was like, well, might as well add another food stand. And in order to try to integrate it with the circus area, I designed this little food truck. And the first thing I did was I put down just a regular truck, and then I tried to replicate it as best as possible using the scenery pieces. So what I'm trying to recreate here is I want to make Captain Spaulding's fried chicken and gasoline from the House of a Thousand Corpses. This is actually, if you don't know, a real-world food truck that you can really buy fried chicken from. And it's based on one of my favorite horror movies. I don't know if I would necessarily even qualify House of a Thousand Corpses as a horror movie. It's more just a gore fest. But it's a lot of fun, and I enjoyed the challenge of making the food truck. There were some parts like the side mirrors and the windshield wipers that I wasn't able to replicate 100%, and it does look a little wonky. But overall, I'm pretty happy with it for a first attempt. And we are going to be building more food trucks going forward, so probably it'll have an opportunity at getting a little better with more practice. Here I'm trying to figure out how to build the hood of the food truck and in particular the windshield, which are at kind of strange angles. And ultimately I ended up just leaving it as these basic shapes and going in with some glass to try to make the windshield at least enough that you can suggest it and you can see what I'm trying to do. The food truck idea is one that I've had for a while. I really like the idea of being able to have these different food trucks scattered around for the small food and beverage service items. And this one, like I say, it works perfectly because not only does it reference the House of a Thousand Corpses, which is an excellent Rob Zombie movie, but also it works with the circus node, which we haven't started yet, in that Captain Spaulding at the end of the day is in fact a clown, albeit a murderous, deranged one. And just to cap it all off, I added in the sign where it says Captain Spaulding, and threw in some American bunting since he likes to favor the stars and stripes in his outfit. And unfortunately, I couldn't fit it all in on one side, but the proper slogan is Captain Spaulding's world-famous tasty fried chicken and gasoline. It tastes so damn good! And ultimately, I added that to the Steam Workshop. A link will be in the description if you want to download it for yourself. With the increased guest count, we also ran into a problem where we just ran out of staff space. I had staff rooms developed, one behind the Mystery Shack and one in the borderland between the horror node and the steampunk node, but they were still complaining that they were running out of staff space, so I was like, well, time to build another one. And in order to do that, I am constructing a little building that is inspired by the chapel at Brown University. Now, as I discussed last time, Brown University was actually one of the inspirations architecturally for the Miskatonic University, and I originally had intended for this to be part of the Miskatonic and put over in that area. But I found that it actually fits a little better over by the Haunted Mansion station and the train station. So that's ultimately what I ended up going with. The build was pretty straightforward, but once again, I was deeply hurt and disappointed in the roofing system. This seems to be a common theme in this game. So I did the best I could to try and color match the tiles, and I think I did a pretty decent job. From a distance, you can't tell that much. Particularly not from the ground, but it hurts my soul every time I have to build roofs in this game. So Frontier, if you're watching, please give us a better roofing system for Planet Coaster 2. Please. This is just absurd. So anyway, I got the roof figured out eventually, and then I went around and just copied these windows. I really like the look of these particular castle windows for this build, and then I build the bell tower in on the front. And ultimately, this is just a fun little build. It doesn't match thematically with the Miskatonic, which is why I decided to put it over on its own. But I think that it still fits in nicely with the node as a whole. Here I'm just building the bell tower, and I want to make sure that I have the steps and everything correct, and I figured it was easier to just do this on a separate piece and move it into place, which you can see me doing now. This square tombstone is one of my favorite scenery pieces, and I use it a ton for if I need just a flat stone pillar or platform. So I use that a lot. It does kick my piece count up quite a bit, but it is what it is. And here I'm adding some gabled windows, as much as possible, insofar as the roof is not particularly high or particularly large. So I'm just kind of trumploying it in a little bit. And there's our final chapel. I'm just going to save that. This is also available on the Steam Workshop, and if you want to check it out, just throw it down here at the end of the horror node. I figure this way the staff won't have to walk so far. And here we can take a little tour of the area. This is the horror node train station on our left, by the way. That is going to be where you board the commuter train around to the different nodes here in Bronchial 3. And as you come around the corner, there's the Witch's Den and the Jailer's Den. Jailer's Den and Witch's Lair, I think. And here's our Captain Spaulding fried chicken truck. And that is pretty much where we're going to wrap up for today. Now, if you enjoyed today's episode, go ahead, hit that like button. And for more of the pure imagination, feel free to subscribe. We do new videos every week. You can, of course, also support us on Patreon. Link is in the description. But until next time, I am the Pumpkin King, and I will see you later.